You're listening to the Custom Built Podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to discuss why your renovation needs a schedule and why it's a red flag if your contractor won't give you one. So stay tuned. If you feel like your home renovation is in limbo, this one is for you. Okay? We're going to discuss why a schedule is important, why it delivers trust and transparency, why it shows that you can be confident in your contractor that they are respecting your time, your money, and that they actually hear and care about what's going on. It also clues you in on what kind of time management skills and their processes. So it gives you more information than you might expect. All right, so why you absolutely need to have a schedule for your renovation. The first one is for confidence, right? If you have a clear path of what your renovation is going to look like, now you can feel more confident to knowing what's happening. So, okay, demo comes first. I see demos happening. And I know after demo, then they're going to rewire or plumb or like HVAC. So you have an idea because there is always a process when it comes to building. Every home renovation is going to look different, but every contractor should have an idea of the steps. Those steps are always going to be the same. There's only certain things that you can do in certain areas of a renovation, right? So if you're all the way down, you're taking everything out, that is the time that you're going to be doing the electrical and the HVAC or whatever things that are hidden behind the walls. That's the only time you're going to do it. So if the walls are up and then they're like, oh, we're going to do electrical, they're missing up the steps here. So yes, every renovation looks different, but the processes that need to happen are always going to be the same. So having at least a general idea of what's going to look like for your home renovation is crucial. It lets you know that your contractor is being transparent, which is my next one. It builds trust, right? Your transparency builds trust. It gives you that, again, the confidence that your contractor knows what they're doing. It gives you that extra layer because words are great. You can always, I think people can say whatever they want and they can make it sound really, really good and they can tell you what they want, but if they're not delivering on those words, then their words don't mean anything. So having that schedule is giving you that trust and that transparency, and it needs to make sense, but we'll get further into that. And then also time. Time equals money. So if you don't have a schedule, guess what's happening to your budget? Every time it takes that little bit longer, you're shelling out more money. This is costing way more than it needs to because there hasn't been an efficient way of handling this process. And again, we can go through on this a little bit further, but these are the main three things that is so important to have a schedule for your project and why your contractor really needs to provide this for you. Not only will a contractor gain your trust by being able to provide you with their timeline, but it also shows that they're willing to take accountability. And that's a conversation that's really important to have with them and to understand how they're going to handle accountability. And in my experience, people don't always like to be held accountable, right? That's a really tough thing for people to admit, like, I messed up, so let me hold myself accountable here. And I don't fault people all the time for that. I know that's like a growth thing. And I hope that people can get there. But to know that it's really important. So if they're showing you that they're giving you a timeline, I think that gives you a nice green flag that they are willing to take accountability for what's going to come in this project. And then back to the money and making sure that your time is being respected, if your schedule falls behind or if there is no schedule and there is a lack of planning, that's, again, the money you're paying longer. Every time you have to be out of your house and you're paying for another place to stay, that's money. Your utilities are having to be paid in both places, right? We forget that there's still utilities that sometimes need to be paid when you're going through a renovation. That house sometimes still needs power or water for the jobs to get going and still, stay on track. You can get a temporary pole for electric, but you're still paying the electric company for that, unless it's built in. But I mean, someone's paying for it, and it's probably you as the homeowner. But also, these are like when you don't have a full schedule, you're now you're talking trades might need to be moved around. They might not be available when it's ready. Like if you're doing tile work, this was a huge one. If I didn't have everything in place, my tile guy is busy. So if I miss that time frame, if I have to reschedule him, sometimes I have to wait another 2 weeks. And then that's a 2 week change on my schedule, on the homeowner's expectations. Can there be a little bit of wiggle room to move things around to keep the job moving? Absolutely. Because some things do pop up. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But mainly, if you don't have a schedule and things are constantly shifting around, that shows poor time management. So that shows that your time and your money isn't as important. It's not a high value from that contractor. They might say it is, and they might believe it is. But again, they can say whatever they want to say, but without having the actions to show it, their words mean nada. They don't mean anything. So words don't mean anything without the weight of the action behind it. Okay? So red flags you want to watch out for if your contractor won't give you a schedule, right? Ask why. Why won't you give me a schedule? If they're being really defensive about it, or if they're saying things like, every project's different, we'll just see how it goes, that's concerning. Or I've done this 100 times, don't worry about it, I got this. Again, your words don't really mean anything. I need to see something a little bit more transparent, and I need to see more, not just transparent, but I need it to be concrete as much as possible. And I need to know that you know what you're talking about. Again, words don't mean anything without this action behind it. A contractor is always a good contractor. Doesn't need a perfect timeline, but they're going to be able to build a timeline that creates buffers for things that are going to be out of their control. And we can talk about this. So what are things that can actually affect a timeline? So regardless if your contractor has a schedule for you, there are always going to be things that are going to be outside of their control, right? And we're talking permits, and we're talking about inspections, we're talking about weather, manufacturing delays, shipping delays, and even people delays, okay? So these are things that a contractor doesn't always have control over. But a good contractor knows the area that they're working in. They know the materials that you want, and they have a good idea. They have a finger on the pulse, or at least if they don't know, they look into it. So that way they're more prepared when it comes to getting started in your renovation. So in Charleston alone, there's many different jurisdictions within the city. Sometimes it's the county, sometimes it's a town. It just depends on where you are, your zip code, lots of rules. But you get to know the nuances of each one. Some move really fast, some move really slow. And then the inspectors, even knowing which ones are going to be really, really challenging, and then the ones that which areas are going to be more challenging than others. And when I say challenging, I just mean sometimes they're just a little extra on things, and maybe I shouldn't say that. But there's some areas that it's why did I need a permit for countertops? These were done in house. I've had that. I had to go back and take that off of one of my applications for a permit that I made, because we replaced the kitchen counters and then the countertops, clearly, right, to go all together. This was a large house fire, and I had actually inherited this job from somebody else, so they had put in the application. And so I was getting my final inspection, and the inspector actually asked me for a countertop permit. I've never ran into that. I'm like, why do I need a countertop permit? We did this in-house. And because he was like, oh, okay, you just need to do an addendum, which was no big deal. But that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. You want to know these nuances and have an idea of what's going on. So that way you can be like, all right, this is going to take me another minute because I have to go back and do some paperwork and fix this, because why do we need a permit for a countertop? The county just wanted more money, right? Why else would you want this? Even some counties or jurisdictions want permits for just doing top outs. So just swapping out a toilet. You're not even doing any major you're not doing any major plumbing. But they still want you to have a permit just for swapping that out, which, is wild. So again, nuances are important. A good contractor will know that, but a good contractor will let you know ahead of time what to expect. Hey, my experience with this area is that they can take up to 4 weeks to get me a permit. So I just want to let you know you might not be seeing a lot of movement happening here, but this is what we're going to do in the meantime while we get your project ready. We're going to start ordering your your windows, your doors, whatever. Like we can start demoing because we can do this within the scope of not needing the permit. Whatever it is, maybe you can't. Don't quote me on that. I know you need a demo permit, okay? But sometimes there are things where you can do that and it's okay. So knowing that, right? So understanding if your contractor knows that, they might not be able to give you an exact timeline for your permits, but they'll give you that expectation ahead of time. That's a good sign. That's a green flag. Red flag, all my jobs take different. They're all different, yada, yada, yada. Don't worry, I do this a million times. That's no. If they're saying, oh, don't worry about it, like I have connections with the city, it's going to be fast, that might be true, but it also might not be true. So they should still set you up, being like, I normally have a good relationship with them. I'll see what I can do. So hopefully we can speed this along. But also, I know that this jurisdiction takes a lot longer. There's very different communication style there, you see. Whether the manufacturing, the shipping, of course, those are things that are never going to be in anyone's control. But you also want to know that. So like if you're getting a custom made cabinet, custom made windows, anything that's custom, it's going to, the contractor knows it's going to take longer for that to come in. So it's important that they pre-plan for this, that they are aware of this, and they're communicating that with you. So when they're ordering that, you typically get a lead time from the manufacturer. So they can at least give you that lead time. Whenever we had kitchen cabinets that we were going to install, different lines took different times. Some only took like a week or two to come in. Some took 6 to 8 weeks. So when I was creating my schedules out, I always factored in, if it was a specific company, I would always go on the side of this is going to take 8 weeks. And that way, you as a homeowner are not surprised if it's taking 8 weeks, because now you have that expectation set. I mean, I might even add a couple of weeks in case there's some weird shipping issues, or if we're seeing things that are, quality issues that are coming in and they're not working. If there's quality issues and they're coming in damaged, I might even factor in a little bit more time for having to reorder cabinets or pieces of that cabinets, just to give us that wiggle room. And then also plan the schedule around those long things that might affect other parts of the process. So for cabinets, I'm not putting in flooring until I have my cabinets in. So floor is going to be way later. So I'm not going to do anything until, any flooring wise, in that area, if it's going to be after the cabinets. And then also, sometimes they just don't have control over their trades. People get sick, people don't show up. If they have really good relationships with their trade, they should at least give you that heads up. Like, they should know him by now. Like, hey, this guy's normally really great. He'll be here. If he doesn't show up, or she, right? Because, glass ceilings and shit. If they don't show up, I would expect your contractor to have their back a little bit. Hey, that's really out of character for them. Let me give them a call and see what's going on. Maybe something really did come up. But if you start seeing a pattern, I think it's very, very appropriate for you as the homeowner to question, or even bring this up in the beginning. What do you do if a trade doesn't show up or do the job properly? How are you holding them accountable? What are those expectations like? And I think that's a smart conversation to have early on, so that way you know how they're handling it, what their response is. That gives you an understanding too, if it's meaningful, if it makes sense, if they sound like they are really true and honest. I think you can get a really good vibe off of that. But let's say the scenario shows up and they're not holding somebody accountable. That's your time to say, hey, remember this time we had this conversation in the beginning? So what's going on now? Well, how are you going to do this? Because now you're holding them accountable. And then, to save face, they're going to want to hold, I would hope they would want to hold their trade accountable and not, try not to avoid conflict with this. So things to consider, and know that things will go different on your timeline. So having a schedule is crucial. A good contractor will factor in the buffer for that, and they will also communicate with you what's happening throughout your project, so that way you know. And again, red flags are, don't worry, I've done this a million times, I got this, or you don't need to schedule, we'll just see how this goes, every project's different. That's not going to fly. Your project is going to fall into some sort of process that is going to be known. Now, you might run into things that are going to be surprises. Your contractor should be telling you this in the beginning. I don't know how this is going to look to begin with. So is it okay if I give you a schedule a little bit into this first portion. But if that's the agreement, they should still be, touching base with you every couple of days and telling you what's going on. And then they should be able to give you a schedule from whatever that expectation is right from there. Being able to identify if it's the truth or if they're bullshitting you. And you'll see patterns, right? So look for patterns in ways that they respond. Is it really dramatic? If they're like, oh, everything's going to be blah, 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 blah. No, that's an excuse. That's them using a buffer. I've had a trade that's like would order the windows, but then like notoriously say, oh, it's not in yet. It's not in yet. They haven't manufactured it. They didn't right. They did it wrong. So they have to redo it. It's going to take this much longer. So that way they had a little bit of space to get other jobs done. You can sniff out the bullshit pretty easily. Also, if they're always blaming somebody else, like that's a red flag for me. Like you got to take some ownership in this. Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry. I miscalculated this time frame. I'm going to do really better. I'm going to really, really better. I'm going to work on that and see what I can do and see if I can get this expedited. I apologize. I miscalculated this. Let me see what I can do to keep this on track. This is what I'm going to do to make sure that your timeline is still on track, because we're able to still do X, Y, and Z while we wait for this item. There's going to be shifts, and that's okay. Communicate. Communication's huge. But this gives you that idea of what's going on. It allows you to feel more confident in what's going on in your project, is to know what's happening and what's coming next and be prepared for it. Yeah, a good contractor is going to always communicate early and often. Here's what's coming up. This is what's happening. This is where we are, and this is what we shifted, and this is why we shifted it. I mean, that's what a contractor should be. This is a partnership. This isn't them taking over and doing everything because this is a job that you gave them. You gave them this job. You can take it away too. This isn't, you are not married to this, and it's not something that's like etched in stone and forever in. You can hold these people accountable, and you should. And they should hold you accountable too, right? This, again, it's a partnership, it's a collaboration, and there should be an open, transparent conversation for both of you. And that also means if you're expecting your contractor to give you a schedule, that means you need to do your part too and figure out your selections and not get angry with them if you make your selections late and then find out that they're on back order, or it's a product that's coming from across the world and it's going to take months for it to come in. Okay, so being realistic and understanding that, and just know your part, and not blame your contractor for not having things in place if you weren't able to deliver your part of what you needed to deliver. Okay, so partnership and collaboration is huge, just an open communication. So it's not just about the schedule, it is also about that communication and why things are shifting and why things are moving and how we're going to hold people accountable if they don't show up. What you can do as a homeowner to make sure that you are getting your contractor to give you their schedule, and just to make sure that conversation is staying open. So always ask for a schedule early. Early on in your conversation, when you're meeting with your contractors, ask them if they provide that schedule. Ask them what this schedule would look like. What does this renovation, how long do you think this one will take based off of what you know now? What can make it go longer? What can make it go quicker? It might just be about selections and certain things. Check for a timeline clause in your contract. Just make sure that, if they give a specific timeline clause in there, you just want to make sure that that's on there and that it's open. The collaboration, right? Make sure you're being collaborative and holding each other accountable. Like I said, it's a two-way street, so you need to do your part, they need to do their part, and this is where you meet in the middle and you work together. And keep your notes. Keep your own notes, okay? Don't just rely on your contractor to do everything. That is what that is what you hired them to do. They probably have a project manager or a foreman that's on site as like a site manager. But you should also keep your notes too and what you've witnessed, and just see if they start lining up. And if things are a little hairy and you're like, well, that's not what I witnessed, and you're hearing different things, it might be a good time to bring that up. So it's good practice just to have your own notes and just keep track of what's happening. And again, keeping that open communication. That's not like to just be like, I know they're going to be messing up, so I'm going to keep my notes. Like, it's not about that. It's just making sure that you're able to keep your notes and you know what's going on. They're able to, match that, and you guys are on the same page, because this, again, it's a partnership and you want it to go smoothly. And this is one way to make it go smoothly, on time and on budget, right? All right, so your main 3 takeaways today is 1, a schedule is a sign of respect for your time, your money, and your vision. 2, your renovation is stressful enough, so let's go with it. Don't go into it blind. Be confident when it comes to your renovation. That's why you got me here, right? 3, your contractor wants you to feel confident. They want you to feel comfortable. So if they're not giving you that reassurance and they're not showing you, they're probably not the right fit. So thank you for hanging out with me. I hope this was helpful. Every week, new podcast launches every Wednesday. I am shifting my blueprint to build. If you heard me talk about blueprint to build, it is still going to be available. It is going to be your step-by-step guide into working with your contractor and getting really ready for your home renovations. However, I am nestling it inside my Blueprint Collective, which will be a membership, and it's going to be more of an a la carte type of place where you can go and grab what you need, take what you need, and go. So keep your eyes out for that. I'll be sending out some information, so make sure you get to my website and sign up for the newsletter. That is going to be the first place that I go and I announce the Blueprint Collective opening, and there will be a special price for all new founding members, and you will be locked in on that price forever, as long as you stay in that membership. If you drop out of the membership and then you come back in, I can't promise you're going to have that same price. But as a founding member, it's going to be at its lowest cost. It's going to be the best cost that you're going to get for it. And the bonus is that every time I add more content, you're always going to be having access to it. So there are some major perks to that. And the main one is you're getting the best price as a founding member to the Blueprint Collective. So stay tuned. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a beautiful day. And if this was helpful and you want to share it with your friends and family or somebody that might be going through a renovation soon, make sure to share this episode, like it, review it, and subscribe. It just means so much to me that you're still here and listening. But I will catch you next week, and we're going to be talking about how life just keeps lifing. So I hope that one will be fun for you. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for hanging out today. If you liked what you heard, please make sure you hit subscribe, and I hope to see you again next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.